Midnighter. Midnighter, alongside his future husband, Apollo, was part of a top-secret Stormwatch team created by the first weatherman, Henry Bendix. Nobody but Bendix himself knew of the team's existence. Bendix built them as a superhuman, and when they donned their costumes and spoke their code names, their previous identities ceased to exist. However, this secret team was all but destroyed during their first mission, Apollo and Midnighter being the only survivors. They went rogue and spent the next 5 years undercover fighting for a finer world in the alleyways of America. One mission took them to Britain, where they thwarted Bendix's attempts at experimenting on children to create superhumans. In the process developing links with MI5, they remained unknown to Stormwatch until Christine Trelane found the files about their team after Bendix's fall. Jackson King, formerly Battalion, now the new weatherman, ordered them found, not being sure whether they were heroes or villains. Midnighter and Apollo were after weapons made in the Nevada Garden, a relic of the first engineer. He ordered Fahrenheit and Hellstrike to tag them with fetishes so they could be transported into Skywatch. Midnighter and Apollo first attacked the Stormwatch team, believing them under Bendix's orders. However, they ceased their attack once they were told that Bendix had died. With King's help, they violently retrieved the garden from the US Army, and King granted them what they asked for: new lives away from Stormwatch. After Stormwatch was destroyed, Jenny Sparks convinced both Midnighter and Apollo to come out of retirement and join her new group, the Authority. A formidable fighter with a sardonic attitude, Midnighter epitomized the new team's commitment to fighting for a finer world, including against vested interests and world governments. He was the architect of the team's first significant victory, the defeat of autocratic dictator KsMr, which he achieved by dropping the 50-mile-long carrier onto Gamora's island base. Midnighter was the only Authority member to evade capture when the US government had the team attacked and replaced with manipulable substitutes. Presumed dead, Midnighter had in fact escaped the carrier with baby Jenny Quantum. He returned to overthrow the puppet team and rescue Apollo from imprisonment and abuse at the hands of their replacements. Shortly thereafter, Midnighter and Apollo were married and adopted Jenny. Midnighter took a central role during the Authority's brief over the United States. A visitation, apparently from a future Apollo, convinced Midnighter that he was on the path to becoming a malign dictator. To avoid this fate, Midnighter quit the team, precipitating its breakup, and returned to life fighting solo on the streets. Raised alone by Apollo, Jenny exploited her powers to age herself to young adulthood and reformed the Authority. Having convinced Midnighter to rejoin the team, Jenny discovered he was being manipulated by a dimension-hopping Henry Bendix, hitherto assumed dead. Midnighter fought for Bendix before the engineer was able to break their mind control. Once out from underneath the spell, Midnighter killed Bendix by ripping out his spine. Circumstances have twice forced Midnighter, very much against his will, to team up with Kev Hawkins, a homophobic former SAS soldier and eponymous protagonist of the Authority. A relationship made worse by the fact that on their first meeting, Kev killed him, Apollo, and the rest of the Authority, though the carrier resurrected them. On the last meeting, they took down MI5's Royal Oak project, an attempt at replicating Bendix's experiments. When Captain Atom was displaced into the Wildstorm universe and posed a threat to the said universe due to possessing a fragment of the Void entity, the Authority initially had tried in helping Captain Atom and forcing Jack Hawksmoor to order Midnighter and Apollo to kill Captain Atom, in which the two killed Grifter, who was fighting for Captain Atom, and brought him to the carrier. However, when Apollo hit Atom with his I-beams, he inadvertently triggered Atom's imminent destiny, causing him to transform into a menacingly glowing form. Apollo is then killed upon touching Captain Atom by being incinerated into a charred skeleton right before Midnighter's eyes. Enraged and disobeying Hawksmoor's command, Midnighter tried to attack Atom, but is then killed too, like his husband. Following the reboot of the Wildstorm universe, Midnighter was among those who were killed in the previous universe, such as Grifter, to be reborn anew in the newly created Wildstorm universe. After returning from a mission in war-torn Afghanistan, Midnighter was attacked and kidnapped by unknown agents while passing through the carrier's teleportation portal. He awoke in a facility in Hamburg, Germany, where a man named Anton Paulus told him that he was disrupting his ability to guess his opponent's moves, and that he had removed his secondary heart and replaced it with a remote detonated bomb. Paulus gave Midnighter the choice of either working for him or dying, showing him a photograph of the person he wanted Midnighter to kill: Adolf Hitler. Time-travelling back to the First World War trenches, Midnighter encountered Hitler as a young corporal in the German army, but was apprehended by Time police officers from the 95th century before carrying out his mission. In his struggle to escape, he crashed the officer's time machine at the year 1945, shortly before Hitler's expected suicide. Eventually, he allied himself with them and worked his way back to his own time, where he threatened to erase Paulus from history by killing his kidnapped younger self. It is unclear whether or not he would have in fact executed the child, but ultimately he did not have to. After informing Paulus that he discovered in the past that the real reason he wanted Hitler dead was to allow his father, a Nazi official, to become a more effective ruler than Hitler, Midnighter killed Paulus via decapitation and returned the child to the Time Police to be sent back into the past. Midnighter then returned to the carrier, but was apparently just as listless as before, immediately setting himself on another mission, this time in Iraq. Midnighter's attempts to connect better with humans after the graphic and public disposal of supervillain Suicide King. Trying to help a girl find her pet cat finds him stumble upon a mad scientist who has been kidnapping pets for his cybernetic experiments. After defeating him, he employs the scientist to experiment on the murderers and dictators he acquires before deciding to adopt the one pet the doctor could not repair or rehome, a cyborg dog. Midnighter manages to retrieve all the information about his former life prior to his reprogramming by Henry Bendix, given by Jenny Quarks, and discovered that his real name is Lucas Trent, that he was born on July 14th, 1967, making him 40 years old in 2007, and that he hailed from Harmony, Indiana. On visiting the town, he found it was the hub of a paramilitary patriotic organization named Anthem, with ambitions to take over the United States and provide the country with the conscience they felt it had lost. Whilst battling Anthem and its superpowered operatives, he discovered that Jenny Quarks had falsified the documents she gave him, and that he had never been Lucas Trent. He decided to stay on in Harmony, nonetheless. The World's End. Following the Number of the Beast incident, Midnighter was one of the last Authority members still able to act in the ruins of London, now called Unlondon. Separated from Apollo, who was confined to the upper atmosphere by sunlight-blocking fog over the planet's surface, Midnighter helped civilians to reach the ruins of the carrier, now a stronghold for survivors. When former Changer member, the Eidolon, posed a threat in Unlondon, Midnighter was the only one to confront him and savagely killed him. However, Eidolon is eternally immortal, thus making him the actual victor, and Midnighter was subsequently told off by the undead being that for everything the Authority had ever done was through violence, and as an insult to injury, Eidolon politely informed Midnighter that he and his forces will not attack the carrier. The carrier later suffered an incubite outbreak among the refugees, and Apollo was forced to eradicate the infection, but was then infected himself. Midnighter, unknown to this, remained concerned of Apollo's long absence, as while his husband attempted to burn his infection in the sun. However, it only gained sentience and total domination of his body, calling itself the Burn. The Burn soon fought the Authority, and was eventually subdued by being frozen and imprisoned in cold storage until they could find a cure for him. Midnighter later dreamed a prophetic nightmare about the Warhol-infected Apollo. Midnighter was visited by an unidentifiable girl who told him to go north, heal the land, and heal the wounded king. He decided to follow what the dream told, as he believed that what he might discover could possibly cure Apollo. He then left the carrier. Upon arriving in the Scottish borders, he discovered a fully vegetated island that is prevented from access by guards. Midnighter fought his way and even encountered a dragon. After infiltrating the island, he witnessed a being calling itself the Green Man, murdering a group of refugees who were previously told by the being that it would heal them. Deciding himself to kill the being, Midnighter sneaked into the island's castle where it lived, but then was captured by living vines, and he is brought to the Green Man. Was shocked to discover that the Green Man is the Authority's missing and insane doctor, Habib bin Hassan. The doctor, believing that mankind is at fault for Earth's devastation, tortures Midnighter. As he is being tortured, Midnighter finds himself astral projected and meets with the girl from his dreams to be the Century Baby, Gaia Rothstein. Gaia revealed that she was responsible for calling Midnighter, as she believed that he could stop the mad doctor that has been controlling her for his own ends, and promise that she has a way in healing Apollo. Upon returning back to his body, Midnighter was about to be executed by the doctor, until the Authority timely arrived, thanks to Gaia. After the Authority defeated the doctor, who he faded away, a freed Gaia gave Midnighter an apple that contains the cure to cleansing Apollo's infection. After returning to the carrier, Midnighter fed a slice of the apple to Apollo, which successfully cured him. Together, the couple embraced once again, after a long time of separation. Following the carrier's activation and flight to an unknown location, Midnighter and Apollo decided to stay on Earth, as the former still has faith for Earth's survival, and the latter having to stay near the sun. The couple shortly then participated in Earth's war against the Knights of Kira, in which they succeeded in destroying one of the Knights' transforming machines at the North Pole. After the Knights' defeat, Midnighter supported Spartan's plan in rebuilding Earth and unifying the planet. When Zealot shared her outright disagreement over this, and deciding to leave on her own, along with Maul, in training the survivors of Earth into a planetary defense force, Midnighter was reluctant and cautious. He shared his warnings with Zealot, that if she ever undermined Spartan and the other heroes who supported him. In the next 3 months of Earth's reconstruction, Midnighter remained suspicious of Zealot and decided on spying her. He decided on spying on her before personally telling Apollo of his mission and that he will be absent for some time. He then teleports to Zanzibar, where Zealot established the nation as her domain to train her own coder. Midnighter then confronts and beats Jeremy Stone and demands answers from Stone, which Midnighter learned that he and Zealot are using Kieran technology to impregnate women who volunteer to the coder and then accelerate the growth of their female babies and then train them as part of Zealot's army. But the process was near fatal for the women, as the technology was reserved for cherubims. Midnighter was disgusted in learning this, and especially from Maul, who was willingly to go along with Zealot's plans. Subsequently, Midnighter confronted Zealot and engaged her in single combat. Throughout their fight, the two were evenly matched, as they argued back and forth of their flaws, in which Zealot struck a chord in Midnighter in being unable to save his adopted daughter, Jenny Quarks. Eventually, both combatants were literally grabbing at each other's throats, when Maul, who grew tired of the violence and the guilt for cooperating with Zealot's plan, intervened to stop the fight. However, Maul was close to being cut down by Zealot's sword due to her reflex, which forced him to shrink down to subatomic level to escape from harm. Everyone, including Midnighter, believed that Maul was disintegrated, in which Midnighter chastised Zealot for killing her friend and also losing him to maintain the machines for the pregnancies. But Zealot only tells him that she and Coda will move elsewhere. Midnighter vowed to follow her wherever she goes, though he was shook over what Zealot had said about the loss of Jenny Quarks. Midnighter has the power to predict how a situation will happen before it starts. This allows him to run through a given situation millions of times in his mind, instantly covering every possible result before the first move is even made. He uses this information to predict the actions and/or reactions of others, counteracting their moves almost before they even think to make them, effectively making Midnighter the greatest tactician in the history of mankind, as he is able to see all possible outcomes of any situation before it even takes place. According to Midnighter, his powers also work by letting him see the outcome of the battle he wants, and working backwards, following the right steps to get there. This ability also works as a supercomputer, calculator, simulator, and grants Midnighter an even further enhanced intellect, memory, deductive, and tactical capabilities. His senses are also incredibly enhanced. His senses enable him to see, hear, smell, feel, and taste things imperceptible to humans. He automatically and passively notices, processes, and understands any and all details of any situation, and understands any and all details of the situation, no matter how small, allowing him to intuitively understand and solve any situation, no matter how difficult it may be. It doesn't matter how small the details are, he will automatically know and process them almost instantly. This allows him to detect any modifications or powers in anyone he looks at, as well as how they work, so he can defeat them. He can detect what special abilities an opponent has. He can see the enhancements. He can even detect electrical activity in the brain. He has enhanced hearing, enhanced speed, enhanced strength, enhanced reflexes, and enhanced healing. He is also able to control the pain receptors in his brain. He has undergone major surgery whilst awake and alert. He has the uncanny ability to live entirely self-sufficiently and without sustenance. His immune system has advanced to the point where HIV was defeated in 6 weeks, and the common cold never stays more than a couple of minutes. He is a master of hand-to-hand combat, almost unmatched. He is also incredibly adept at stealth. He speaks German and can apparently operate several types of outdated weaponry. He is, however, vulnerable to psionics. He is more susceptible to nanite infection due to his neural enhancements. Because all of his superhuman implants were all implemented by Henry Bendix, Team Achilles was once able to use a simple remote-controlled switch to temporarily deactivate all his powers upon accessing and making use of Bendix's secret file. It was revealed that his ability can be defeated if his opponent does not make the first move, although this may have been because he was facing a cyborg at the time. Midnighter is also known as the Night's Bringer of War.